Good afternoon and welcome to our 18th annual exhibit of hydrogen and fuel cell technology here at the Hanover Fair. We've been here since 1995 talking about this very important and innovative technology. I'm proud, of course, as a Canadian myself, to invite up one of the big players, and we'll be discussing this in part, why is Canada proportionately so well represented in this industry. And one of those big players, of course, is Ballard Power Systems, Inc. We'll be talking to Senior Account Manager at Ballard Power Systems. It's Geoff Budd. Please welcome with me, Geoff Budd. So, good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Well, Geoff, we almost don't need an introduction. Ballard has been here and has been present in the fuel cell industry, of course, before we were even here at Hanover. But one always wants to know what sort of segments, what sort of aspects one talks about when you talk to a big player in the fuel cell community. So how do you divide up the fields you service in this hydrogen and fuel cell community?
Not too difficult to provide an answer to. We have spent a fair amount of time in terms of focusing on specific market segments where we have done our evaluations and analyses in terms of being able to introduce products to those markets as commercial products and services to the customers in as short a possible time as we obviously have hoped for. And the market segments that we've focused in on in that regard include two major segments: stationary power, and there are a number of micro segments or sub-segments of that particular market, and mobile power. And in that particular market segment, we have two specific focuses, namely city buses and forklift trucks, specific forklift trucks for warehouses.
Now, you use this wonderful phrase of competing with incumbent technologies. That is, competing with technologies that already exist, or at least applications, I should say, that already exist. To give you an example, forklift trucks have been manufactured for quite some time without asking the fuel cell industry to make a contribution. Now, it seems the fuel cell industry's contribution to the use of forklift truck materials handling technologies, it's all increased. Is it difficult to compete with those already existing technologies? What are the advantages of using a fuel cell?
To answer the first question, yes, it is difficult to compete. When you look at a fuel cell solution, as we have discussed over many, many years, the benefits of the zero emission opportunity is one aspect, but at the end of the day, when you deal with a business opportunity like that, the customer has to have a compelling reason to make a switch. And as we all know, compelling reasons are, generally speaking, economic business reasons. And I think that the approach that we and our partners, particularly our partners, actually took in terms of getting themselves embedded into the forklift truck market was to not reinvent the forklift, but to have a look at opportunities of being able to swap out a product and then to emulate that product with our technology, fuel cell systems, and then be able to offer the actual operators of those particular fleets of vehicles a compelling economic benefit in terms of operating and using those specific trucks. So the competition in that particular case is very simple: the power of electricity, the cost of electricity or power, and the cost of batteries, together with all of the associated services that are required to keep those batteries charged and supplied to the vehicles.
And this is, of course, when we're on the issue of forklift trucks, this is a vital issue. We're talking basically about devices that cannot be operated indoors. If we use diesel power or other forms of power, there's certain, in the materials handling industry, there are certain environments where the conventional combustion motor is simply not feasible.
That's correct. And once again, going back to the market segment or the sub-segment that was targeted by ourselves and our partners, it is and was specifically a market that had forklift trucks that were using batteries. In other words, products that were allowed or permitted to be operated indoors so that there weren't any problems in terms of emissions for the employees in that particular environment. So we weren't competing with diesel emissions in that context, but more so, as I mentioned earlier on, with the cost of electricity, the price of the batteries, the price of the battery changing system, and also issues of productivity. When you look at it, let's have a look at a battery in terms of its capabilities, its state of charge throughout its state of charge period in terms of operating the vehicle will show certain signs of depletion, whereas an internal combustion engine or a fuel cell powered vehicle will not. It'll stop operating when the actual fuel is not supplied, so you don't have those challenges. One of the operators, or one of the OEMs we worked with, actually found a very interesting market niche in that particular regard, and most of the warehouses that provide, for example, groceries also have refrigerated or freezer warehouses. And as we know, batteries don't like changes in temperature, so that was obviously one of the first opportunities that were used to be able to introduce the technology, as opposed to having large amounts of excess capital, or changing or lost productivity in terms of having to change batteries frequently.
Now, I know we're building up to one of the focal points in your interest here, which are the buses. There is one region in Canada where hybrid fuel cell buses are operating right now, and your company is intensely involved in the process of developing a viable form of public transportation using fuel cell technology. Let's get into that topic.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you. We began discussions back in June of 2004 with the authorities, with the government in British Columbia and Canada, in terms of their interest to deploy a large fuel cell fleet of buses in Whistler. For the target, of course, was for the Winter Olympics that took place in Vancouver. And fortunately, together with our partners, our OEM partners, suppliers of the hydrogen, we managed to, together with them, deploy the buses in time for the actual Olympics. And that particular bus fleet will operate with the current technology all the way through to 2014, as it stands today. That particular fleet is currently the largest fleet in one single city, town, that is being operated. The other interesting factor about that in terms of learning from the process with such a large fleet was also the issue of maintenance, service, and supply of fuel. And the fuel, in this particular case, is supplied by Air Liquide, and that particular filling station is the largest in the world for the transportation market as we stand today. I'm sure larger products or pieces of equipment will be installed in the future, but that today is still the largest, and it needs to be to service those 20 buses that are operating in the city of Whistler.
Now, you've used so eloquently the word compelling. Compelling uses for compelling value propositions for using buses that involve this fuel cell technology. What are the reasons? I mean, conventional buses are very reliable. They do have their limitations. So is there any specific compelling motivation to shift from the combustion engine bus to the fuel cell powered bus?
Yes, there are. Fundamentally, and again going back to what I said earlier on, the compelling reasons for using fuel cell powertrains in city buses are associated to clean air, whether it's the issue of reducing the carbon dioxide footprint, or simply doing away with the standard emission problems you find from internal combustion engines that include unburnt hydrocarbons, CO, particulate matter, NOx. those were the, I guess, the driving forces to begin with. However, as I said earlier on, they have to be competitive. And in the bus market today, in terms of what we deliver to our OEM partners, who then deliver to the operators, we do not have a competitive model that exists at this particular point in time. So most of the projects around the world have changed. Small fleets in operation, evaluation as we move forward. And the future, from our perspective, is with the benefits of efficiencies that fuel cells offer, and hopefully the reduction in the price of hydrogen, is to be able to offer a commercially viable product that will compete with a hybrid solution, a hybrid diesel or a hybrid fossil fuel powered bus, due to the fact that we are and others are working on very diligently design to cost reductions of our products as we move forward. That's one of the key issues. And lifetime as well. We haven't reached the actual industry's target lifetime at this point in time, but we have relatively intensive programs in-house and projects in-house to actually do that, with those targets coming up in the next 2 to 3 years.
And as we speak, it seems to me developments are continuing at Ballard. When I visited your booth, which is, by the way, it's D65 and it's well worth a visit, I noted that there is what you call an HD6 unit. And you're moving on to an HD7 at some point in the relatively near future. What are the improvements that you've already anticipated in the development? How is the structure of the bus, perhaps the ratio between batteries and fuel cell, and how they interact? What sort of changes are already underway to make that bus more cost-effective and perhaps more efficient?
The HD6 is our, as the number indicates, our 6th version or phase of the development of a heavy-duty fuel cell module, fuel cell system module, and again, particularly focused at the market of city buses. The stage we've reached now, and this is post the CUTE program or the STEP program, whereby we were involved quite heavily with Daimler, with Mercedes-Benz EVA bus in the recent past, is the next generation of relatively simple fuel cell system to be able to be integrated into a bus, and that closely emulates the power range of what is currently being used in buses, 150 kilowatts or thereabouts, depending upon what the drive cycles in fact require. We've already engaged, we actually had done during the course of last year, in rather an intensive program regarding, firstly, design to cost, reducing the actual, so it's primarily in terms of objectives, cost reduction of the hardware. So design to cost efforts are actually underway at the present moment with support funding from our federal government and the involvement of some of our universities in and around Vancouver. And the HD7 has as its second, and not in any order of priority, important target of increasing the lifetime of the entire fuel cell system. And the stack is a primary component of that, of course. We target to have that particular product available in the time frame of 2014.
I should add here that if there's any question from the audience, I'm sure we'd be happy to field them. Just raise your hand. Oh, we do. We have 2 questions here. I'll start with the gentleman closest to me.
Hi there, Johnny Wing from Fuel Cell Today. I was just wondering what lifetime you're hoping to achieve with HD7.
The target is to be competitive with an internal combustion engine in the life of a bus before you go through the standard replacement of powertrain objective. And that's roughly about 30,000 hours of operation.
Okay, great, thank you.
The next question was over here. Was there another question here? Here.
Hello, my name is Michael Wild from Mann & Hammer Company in Germany. I just wanted to ask you if you see how you would estimate the potential of city buses, fuel cell city buses in China, due to the fact that we think in our company that there is a high potential. that China will be one of the leading countries within fuel cell city buses?
We agree with you. We agree with you, and we're actually active with a specific partner in China, to whom we in fact have delivered fuel cell stacks in the past, and they've developed their own systems with our engineering support. So we continue that particular exercise with that partner, and I think one of my colleagues who works in that part of the world was in fact in China last week or the week before, and that was one of his primary topics, was to again re-engage our partner who has a very strong and keen interest. So geographically we're not in fact bound by Europe, although Europe is our prime at this present moment market in terms of development. We're delivering systems to, I'll just give you a quick view of the global picture: Brazil, United States, Canada, Europe. We've got buses in, I'll just go through a few: England, Norway, Italy, Germany, and a few others that are in fact lined up in the next year in terms of contract negotiations. China is the other one. So we're pretty sort of widely distributed in terms of supporting and growing this particular product in that market segment. So it's a big one for us, definitely.
So again, if there are any more questions, just raise your hand. For me, one issue, we think of China because of its, it seems they're always ready to take on innovations quickly. But I'm thinking of the European market. I live in Berlin, and there's a region in Berlin where the so-called Feinstaub, that is the emissions from diesel motors, is so large that in fact, according to European law, it should be illegal to drive diesel vehicles on some streets in Berlin in certain phases of the day. This is already the case now. So in view of that, do you see a large, I mean, this is a European approach to limiting emissions. Is that going to generate more business for your buses?
Oh, absolutely. And in amongst many other cities in Europe, it seems to be a domino effect, you know, as more and more cities, and by the way, Berlin's not new to hydrogen-powered vehicles. They have had and do have passenger vehicles operating in the city. And in the past, they did have hydrogen that powered internal combustion engines operating in the city for a while. So we, from our perspective, would be very glad to support and continue to develop not only products for our customers to be, you know, profitable in terms of being able to deliver fuel cell buses to customers in future, but also in terms of expanding the geographical footprint of where we deliver our products together with partners to the operators in various cities. And of course, the fuel cell bus offers the opportunity of a zero-emission vehicle within those particular boundaries of the city and where it in fact is driven.
Would the same apply to urban delivery vehicles? Trucks?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, without a doubt.
We're sort of winding out and getting close to the end. I can't resist one question on the origin of your company in Canada. For me, it's been fascinating for years working here to see that Canadians are somehow overrepresented here. When I say overrepresented, I mean that Canada is a really small country in terms of its population. If you compare it to a number of other countries represented here, it's also a relatively humble country in terms of its revenue by comparison with some of the massive nations that we visit when we're traveling for the fuel cell industry. And still, its representation in the fuel cell industry is large. Do you have any explanation why Canadian companies are so key on this issue? How did they get the leap? Where did they...
Let me work backwards. I talked about the development of the HD7. We do have incredibly diverse and broad research institutes supporting our efforts. And if I go back historically and I look at where we've come from since 1979, I think the two factors that have really been a very powerful driving force for a company like ours has been the ability to draw from a relatively wide range of technical expertise that have had you know, the technology knowledge and depth in terms of being able to support a new product like a fuel cell. But also to a large degree as well, although we don't have an extremely large funding base in Canada for our types of technologies. If I reflect back over the last 10, 15 years, we definitely have had a pretty good and a good fair share of support from both of our federal governments and our local government in British Columbia. So those two factors together, and that's pretty much evident throughout Canada, where we have specific products that do shine globally in terms of what is in fact being offered as new technology for our future, be it energy or anything else for that matter.
Of course, I'll add for you. Oh, we do have one question. I hope it's short because we're really close to the end, but here you go.
Director Young from the Netherlands. I'll try and keep it short. You said that at this point you're not yet competitive with diesel buses. Could you quantify a little bit how much progress you've made and how far you are away from that point? And related to that, and now it's becoming a longer question, related to that, to what extent is this all dependent on the price of diesel, which varies a lot between countries?
Yes, agreeing with your last point, it is very dependent upon the price of diesel. And I guess unless somebody would like to contradict that, but I guess the price of diesel won't stabilize or go down in the medium term, long term. So that for us is a bit of an expectant advantage. So to answer your question, we target to be competitive from a total cost of ownership perspective, and of course the hydrogen has to play a role in that particular regard, by the year 2014. And our competitive target that we're shooting for is to be competitive with a diesel hybrid bus, which seems to be globally one of the more recent introductions in terms of city transportation as a powertrain for city buses. So I hope that answers your question for you.
Well, getting back to where we were, thank you for the question, by the way. Getting back to where we were, why is Canada such a large player? Of course, one of the reasons is simply that Ballard's there. So it's been a pleasure talking to you. I've been talking to Geoff Budd, Senior Account Manager at Ballard Power Systems. His booth is D65, easy to reach in that direction. Join him there to continue the conversation. I hope you're back next year, Geoff. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for attending today.
Thank you. And we're continuing in 30 seconds with our next guest up on the stage. We'll be talking to Marco Dragoni from H2 Nitidor, based in Italy. And we'll be talking about alkaline electrolyzers and compressors and applications. So have a drink there on the house and keep here.